Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sunday, and we are here to discuss mainly the issues surrounding our country. So I was lucky in a way, and I was invited to a press conference in Sri Lanka on 29th of June, 2022. And because of the discussions that we've been doing for several months now, I had some idea how to handle this situation in a kind of a holistic manner. So I highlighted that the presentation that I made there, which is online at the moment, reflected the consensus of many patriotic Sri Lankans meeting every Sunday to discuss issues point by point. And this is very important that we collectively develop the narration as to how we should go forward. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka currently is very sick, considering the developments that were very recent. And this talking alone or teaching is not going to help. So we are talking, but we do need action. We need treatment. Otherwise, we are not going to recover. I'll just summarize what I talked in this conference. I said the importance of proceeding with the our petition, which had 10 items. 9 items are to promote a liberal democracy and promote peace and unity, and 1 item to abolish presidency. So in this, I mean, if you see even the first one, if we can get it into the constitution, like enshrine human rights, this has 30 items which are really relevant for us. If that goes to our constitution, you will see how much recognition we'll have around the world to get our matters resolved. So let's go from there. And then we also initiated a program to have a sustainable method to continue food banks in various villages where there are volunteers who can help. And this is developing quite nicely. I am grateful to so many experts, and particularly in relation to this, the volunteers from the towns and also the experts in IT industry who are really helping us to develop a program so that we will know exactly what kind of donations we are getting, to whom they are going to, and also, what needs are there and so on. So may I invite Mervyn, who is, I don't know whether Mervyn's around. Do you want to make a small presentation or talk about this, Mervyn?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yeah, I can hear you, Mervyn.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Just to pick up on that, under the theme of food banks that we are working in Sri Lanka to help set up, I am liaising with the company in Sri Lanka, company by the name Bistec Global, Colombo-based company that works in the international markets, working with well-established Western companies, businesses, so with Sri Lankan talent, doing some very exciting, challenging technology projects. So they are world-class in their talent. And I had the privilege of knowing them, working with them. I contacted them a few weeks ago and made them aware of Sri Lanka leads, that the group that we are, and the weekly seminars taking place, and invited my colleagues, my contacts there to join, listen in, which they have done, and then spoke to them told them about the food bank initiative that we are establishing. And I myself, being from the IT industry, value very much the benefits of having a good IT system to support something like this. Because every time I go to Sri Lanka, I realize for a tropical country, very fertile, very rich in vegetation, paddy, vegetables, fruit, and flowers, because our methods of transport and management are not very efficient, large percentage of our products get wasted. They dry up, they perish, and get thrown away. And in a time like now, it's critical that we don't throw anything away. And it doesn't mean to say that rotten food or vegetables can be given to people. We need to find ways of being more efficient, managing better. But the situation, it doesn't help not having electricity, because a lot of these things are heavily dependent on electricity, having a fridge or a freezer, having computers to manage them, and also having the knowledge to be more efficient, like the supermarkets in the Western world do, and having a good stock control system. And apart from anything else, also giving the assurance to people contributing that the donations they give in whichever method they do, locally or from a distance or overseas, are efficiently managed, fairly administered, and they go to the deserving people. So that's the sort of logic behind that. And I don't know if it's appropriate to name the names, but I have been working with a few colleagues, and this particular company, we looked at the requirements of a database system that can be administered efficiently, easily, using even with a mobile phone, without having, with a very weak signal. So every time somebody gives a donation, it's entered into the system. So we build up a stock management system that tells us any moment what resources, what food, what vegetables, what we have got in our donated to us, and also intelligence on which is likely to perish soon, that needs to be given priority for giving away, and also a list of people pre-checked, people with need, our priority groups: pregnant women, disabled people, children, who are given priority subject to locally established criteria. Obviously, our colleagues on the ground can give more details about it. So this system will help them both record the donations, the stocks we have, and the people in need, and very efficiently give them, distribute them, so as fast as we can. So that's the thinking behind that. We have made good progress. They demonstrate the prototype. We got good comments and feedback. It has been improved. And in fact, I will mention the name Mr. Anuradha Gajanayaka, the Chief Operating Officer of the company that I have been liaising with. And he's not able to attend today because of funeral. So the database is being built, and the plan is to start showing that to our local contacts. There is an IT teacher. She will lead the training. So we will demonstrate that and get them trained up so that the local operational staff can start using it as soon as possible, so that everything that comes into the system is recorded and administered, and it can be also looked at from a distance, so that we can see what the gaps are and the necessary support advice can be given. And the idea is to develop that incrementally, rather than waiting for a perfect product to be built and rolled out, which can take a long time. We will start simple and working, and then with feedback from the users and things that we learn, we will build that into a more developed system. I think on account of time, I'll stop there. And later on, if necessary, we can pick this up and discuss or answer any questions later.
Thank you, Mervyn. Thank you very much. I also hear that it's probably ready to launch by 15th of July.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I have to highlight the commitment of everybody who has gone into this, because our purpose was to have a sustainable program so that we don't start and stop. So that is getting there slowly. So if there are any people from any villages who want to join and then start their own program, we are happy to help. So this is what it is. And this social responsibility program of food banks will continue for 3 years, and that's our plan. So thank you again for the team who are doing all that work. And I'll take you to next slide. So as leads, we've been collecting various information, and then we were focusing mostly to help the problem in Sri Lanka to reduce wastage, which is mostly by corruption, and increase productivity, because we need the energy and we need to educate people, and research and innovation to Sri Lankan problems. So we were focusing on these areas when this came along. So the economic downfall, which was in April, and we kind of highlighted with everybody's knowledge what's gone wrong. So we had loans, which came into the economy, but it did not produce or contributed to increased productivity. And as a result, we did not progress or we did not benefit from these loans. And then on addition, the corruption has increased phenomenally, and that has contributed to having very low residue in our loans capacity. In addition to this, we have not focused on education. Here are our university admissions from A-level students. Only less than 10% will go for any higher education. And here we are. The people who are working, with the working class, have been paying for all this. And even today, they're the ones who get taxed for whatever that happens. So, but unfortunately, the government's strategy has not been on the correct path. They were trying to get more loans and loans. And then the productivity side has not been looked at, trying to how to get energy or transport to improve productivity. That's not been looked at all. Schools and universities closed. And then there's no food for children, and already they are suffering. Quite sad situation. Wastage, nothing's done about. Local oligarchs means local corrupt people who are making deals to extract as much as possible. The economy is still going on. But then there is also attempts to sell our assets for commission. So we are really in a bad state. And if that all continues, we will shrink into nothing. So this is our situation that I highlighted in the press conference as well. But then I thought adding another slide today for your thinking and discussion. So we want dollars. Okay, we want dollars. Now, unfortunately, if you look at healthcare is dependent on dollars because we import most of the medications and treatments and etc. So same with nutrition. We're not a self-sufficient country in relation to food. So we do have to import food. Then fuel and power and travel. So all this is depending on the imported fossil fuels, and we are not self-sufficient in any way, or we have not worked for it. So given the situation, we've been depending to get dollars by tourism. That was the main kind of approach that was taken by the governments. But unfortunately, that's gone to dead at the moment. No tourists will come to a country like ours where there's no food, no transport, and the violence is looming. So they will not be here. So you can't depend on that. Then the loans from the IMF, this is the main target people have been talking about for the last 2 months. Unfortunately, yesterday it was thrown out of the window because the IMF team walked out saying vulnerability to corruption is a major issue, and therefore they have not made a decision about it. So in the short term, we are not going to get anything from them. Then the expatriate deposits and donations. Actually, people who are working abroad are trying genuinely give something, but they don't want to trust any government institution. This is another problem. They are trying to help individuals separately, and they don't want to do that. I mean, I don't want to give the examples, but that's not coming to you. Then the productivity in Sri Lanka has shrunk to minimal because people are not encouraged to work, or everything is there to stop them from working. Even the government starts shutting down everything. So productivity is nothing, and we are not going to have dollars. Now, this way, we're not going to improve any of these services. So what we should propose, or maybe think about, give fuel to lorries, buses, and trains, as they are now our VIPs, to increase productivity, so that open the schools, offices, and universities, so people can go back to work at least, and then contribute to productivity so that these things, something can be exported to generate some dollars. So now if we get some of the dollars and improve productivity, we should be able to get the healthcare moving, nutrition moving, and fuel moving as well. So here we are. So we are in a really terrible situation. So we must try to work along these lines. But although the government is now still completely away from this kind of approach. Now, yesterday, this was in the paper yesterday about the IMF end of mission report, highlights the corruption vulnerabilities in Sri Lanka, stress the need to reduce corruption for IMF to help. Now, here we are, again, a situation. Now, in this context, I was lucky that Ranjan Silva is a brigadier general who wrote to me and said he'll be interested to speak. In fact, when he sent the initial title, I did not even understand the title. And that has so much relevance. Now we're talking briefly about Ranjan. Ranjan De Silva is retired as a regular force brigadier from the Sri Lankan Army. And his career, he displayed his exceptional skill in maintaining law without violating human rights, sans disproportionate use of force. He was highly acclaimed internationally for this achievement. Now he's the director of automobile company, which is the sole agent for BMW motor vehicles in Sri Lanka. He excels in managing human resources, labor relations, legal matters, and insurance portfolio of the company. He is also on the board of directors of a group of companies in property development. Further, he has also spearheaded in Sri Lanka the UN program of action worldwide to combat the proliferation of illicit small arms. He has made representations in the UN conferences in New York, Geneva, Seoul, and other countries. He has recognized as one of the founders of the Arms Trade Treaty. He is widely read and self-educated. He has kept abreast of developments in social, political, economic affairs in Sri Lanka and the world. He read law at the University of Peradeniya and has a diploma in international affairs. I am really delighted that you are here, Ranjan, to talk about the subject that we all should understand, and it will have direct relevance, particularly when we are talking about corruption at district levels. So here's over to you, Ranjan.
Good evening to all of you, gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation, Chula. Here I start. The doctrine of odious debt. There are two parties to a debt between states. The lender country and the borrower country. We talk more often about the responsibilities of the borrower, but not so much about the responsibilities of the lender. The focus of the doctrine of odious debt is on the lender, not so much on the borrower. The doctrine has two ingredients. First, the money lent did not benefit the people. The money lent did not benefit the people. And secondly, the lender knew or ought to have known that it will not benefit the people. The responsibility of the borrower is to pay back the money he borrowed as agreed. The lender too has certain duties, that is, to ascertain whether the people will benefit from the money he lent and they in fact benefited therefrom. For example, if the money was borrowed to construct a railway, whether the railway was in fact constructed and the people benefited. If he lends money neglecting his duties and loss occurs, then he will have to bear the loss. This is what the doctrine of Odious tells. It is the well-settled practice to do feasibility studies before loans are granted. The lender plays a major role in these studies. This study enables the lender to find out whether a project is feasible or not. Therefore, he is forestalled from saying later on that he did not know the money he gave did not or will not benefit the people. In other words, that it would be a white elephant. The doctrine has been in operation for well over 100 years. Several regimes, including the US, Russia, and China, have benefited from this doctrine. Though not exhaustive, some of the countries are United States, Mexico, Peru, Cuba, Britain, Russia, Poland, Costa Rica, Brazil and Mexico, China, Indonesia, Algeria, Baltic republics, South Africa, Timor-Leste, Iraq, Paraguay, Ecuador, Peru, Sierra Leone, Egypt and Jamaica, and Ecuador again. This doctrine has the following advantages. One, promotes responsible lending. I will expand on it further down. Prevents lending becoming a tool of neo-colonialism. Checks corrupt governments. And finally, strengthens people's sovereignty. The government of the debtor country could offer its support to the creditor country to recover personally the money lent from those who are accountable for the money borrowed. So those who are responsible, who are to blame if the money is misused. This has the advantage for the debtor country in that it has the support of the lender country to recover the stolen assets. Action under this doctrine is best taken by the succeeding regime following the regime change. Apart from restructuring, no party or person has proposed any other solutions to make Sri Lanka's $51 billion debt sustainable. Well, this doctrine offers another. This doctrine is of greater relevance today in the light of the emergence of a new variation, you may call it even mutation of imperialism. I would call it economic imperialism. Some newly rich countries whose ambition is to expand their hegemony in the geopolitical context are exploiting countries that have become financially vulnerable as a result of corrupt governments. These newly rich countries lend money recklessly and unethically to corrupt rulers without doing proper feasibility studies to ascertain whether the projects they lend money for benefit the people of those countries. Djibouti is a good example, a tiny country of about 23,200 square kilometers and a population of less than 1 million people speaking French and Arabic, situated in the Horn of Africa. There is a Chinese military base and a contingent of the Chinese People's Liberation Army stationed there today. China has made inroads deep into Ecuador's sovereignty. An agreement between PetroChina, PetroEcuador, Ecuador's finance ministry and the Chinese Development Bank allows China to seize Ecuador's assets if the country fails to repay the loans and requires Ecuador to irrevocably and unconditionally waive any right to assert any immunity from or any proceedings against it or its assets. So you can imagine the extent to which Ecuador's sovereignty has been eroded or taken away. These are 4 warnings for Sri Lanka to elect leaders capable of protecting the country's independence gained in 1948 after nearly 500 years under foreign rule. To lose it once more in just 74 years is shameful evidence of our inability to govern ourselves. It is the responsibility falling squarely upon the shoulders of thought leaders like you and me to show the way. The Sri Lanka voter needs guidance how to obtain the best value from his vote. The factors he must take into consideration when casting his vote. He cannot expect good economic results while voting for race and religion. In Sri Lanka, the Chinese have already taken over a piece of our territory, the harbor in Hambantota, on a 99-year lease. Some examples of other projects in Sri Lanka that fit the definition of odious debt are the Hambantota Harbor, Mattala Airport, Surya Weber Cricket Stadium, Magampura Conference Hall, Port City, Lotus Tower. These are all loss-making projects. Investigations must be undertaken inter alia to ascertain the circumstances under which loans were granted for these projects, whether feasibility studies were properly done, whether they are unsolicited projects, and if unsolicited, why. There could be more. Sri Lanka should do a full-scale audit of public debt starting from 1948 and apprise all Sri Lankan voters of the lessons that could be learned. Ecuador's president, Rafael Correa, appointed a commission in 2007 to do such an audit of Ecuador's public debt. Greece did the same in 2015. Sri Lanka has gone to the lender of last resort, the IMF, for help. But IMF has not rushed to help. IMF has told Sri Lanka that its debt stock is not sustainable, and to make the country's debt sustainable first. This is an example of responsible lending. IMF has no intention of grabbing a harbor or an airport by rushing with its money to give the $6 billion Sri Lanka imminently needs. Sri Lanka has chosen Clifford Chance as the legal advisor and Lazard Brothers Bank as its financial advisor for restructuring. According to Sri Lanka media reports, Lazard Brothers Bank is claimed to be the world's largest independent investment bank with its headquarters in Bermuda and having principal executive officers in New York, Paris, and London. Clifford Chance is one of the top 10 international law firms in the world, headquartered in London. It's a member of a group of multinational law firms known as the Magic Circle. Sri Lanka's law firms have expressed their reservations with regards to its ability to restructure the country's debt. They say the firm is not experienced enough. The government has not been transparent with regard to the identity of the members of the committee that chose these firms. The government has also been silent on the amount of the initial payment. Sri Lanka lost an opportunity to improve its knowledge base by failing to negotiate for the attendance, at least as observers, of our legal and financial experts at these sessions. While enabling the transfer of skills to Sri Lanka, such a presence would have also ensured that the country's interests are not compromised. Therefore, with regard to repudiating Sri Lanka's odious debts, Sri Lanka will have to depend on her own advisors at home, whether they are living here or abroad, the Sri Lankans. This makes a regime change imperative for the sake of transparency and to avoid conflict of interest. A new government of Sri Lanka can justify repudiation as prima facie the lender has clearly failed to exercise due caution when lending. Prima facie, there is evidence to believe that the money stolen exceeds 51 billion external debt. And it's unjust and unfair, I say this, and it is unjust and unfair to attempt to recoup the losses, the money stolen, by burdening the innocent people with more and more taxes without making any move to recover the money stolen at the same time. India, Seychelles, US financial intelligence agencies have already pledged their support. It is Sri Lanka's political will only that is lacking. It is needed to increase public awareness so as to compel the political firmament to take action. So there is a big responsibility on public opinion, on public interest activists to push this point. Meanwhile, evidence has come to light that the former Minister of Economy and Finance of Ecuador, Richard Martinez, had written to Sri Lanka's Cabinet of Ministers about 3 weeks after the announcement of debt default and intention to restructure, recommending Hogan Lovells an American-British law firm, as it successfully restructured the 19 billion foreign debt of Ecuador in 2020. Apparently, the cabinet has not seen that letter. According to Martinez, it was the most recent state-of-the-art sovereign debt restructuring. Meanwhile, a creditor has commenced litigation against Sri Lanka on the grounds of breach of contract due to Sri Lanka's default of its international sovereign bonds due on 25th of July this month. The creditor, Hamilton Reserve Bank, claims to hold bonds with a principal amount of $250,190,000 in the ISB of $1 billion and seeking full payment for the principal and interest amounting to $257.5 million. This will complicate the debt restructuring talks going forward because there is a pari passu clause in these agreements. And more than 75% must agree for a restructuring. And what this Hamilton Reserve Bank has done is going to cause a problem and thereby delay the IMF assistance coming to us. Another obstacle in the way of restructuring is the stance taken by China, China is held out as Sri Lanka's greatest friend by some. China is also dragging its feet and demanding its terms. A group going by the name of Coalition for Economic Democracy in Sri Lanka is calling for debt justice, debt jubilee, and debt cancellation, but does not mention any particular debt on the project relating thereto. Therefore, their demand does not come within the definition of odious debt. Gentlemen, with this, I'll stop and I'm open to have a discussion. Thank you.
It's my mic was off. Sorry, Ranjan. Thank you for all this talk. And it's fantastic that we now see at least there's a silver lining in this dark cloud, so that if we work, we'll be able to move forward. And can I publicly share your document if that's okay, if you send it to me? Because it's got, historically, it will have a lot of good information for anyone who is taking forward. Is there any questions? It's open for discussion now. Even in Sinhalese, it's fine. Thank you.
Chula, may I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. I'm Parag Vijay Singh. Thank you very much, Brigadier. It's a fantastic document. But one clarification I'd like to seek. You see, how you said this doctrine of odious debt is another tool. But I don't know whether is there any kind of legality about it for us to exercise that. Is that, or is just a doctrine? I am not too clear about that.
Yes. Can I have your name again, please?
Parakrama Jaisingh.
Parakrama, right. I can see you. Hello, Parakrama.
Yeah,
Yes,
hello.
there are precedents. I gave some examples. There are several precedents. So there cannot be a legal barrier unless, of course, it is written into the agreements that our country has entered into with the lenders. I don't think such a clause would have been. So far, there is no evidence to show that such a clause was included. So, in any case, why don't we try? Because as things stand, this matter is going. You see, I can see that that it is not an easy thing for Sri Lanka to make this debt sustainable by generating and increasing our national income. You know, our economy has not been has not made progress to keep pace with our lifestyles. Now, to give you a simple example, today people have got used to using cooking gas. But we never took into consideration that we don't have gas in Sri Lanka, and we need to increase our income to ensure that we can get we can import a continuous supply of gas from abroad. Now, to give you an analogy, you see, do we realize that Japan, take the case of Japan. Japan does not have a drop of oil. Japan does not have a drop of oil. Every single drop of oil is imported by Japan. But they took this factor into consideration when they built an economy which was only second to the economy of America, of the US, until very recently when China caught up. China's economy caught up. But that is because they built up an infrastructure, oil. You see, they didn't have it. So they built up an infrastructure to ensure that they will always have oil security. Now, this is an analogy. In Sri Lanka, we rushed and changed our lifestyle from firewood into gas, but never asked how we are going to sustain this use of gas, cooking gas, and to keep on importing this oil, we must also correspondingly increase our income. The tea rubber and coconut economy is not enough now. I hope that I have answered your question.
Brigadier, you touch upon a subject on which I have very much on to. Chula knows.
Yeah. Can I summarize, Rajan? Parakram is actually spearheading a project to come out of gas using local charcoal. Maybe you can summarize a little bit on that, Parakram?
Yeah, no, that's actually out of the many problems we are having. That is fortunately, one problem we can get out of. So we'll work on that separately. But then getting back to the main subject, you see, well, obviously, for the debt we have already taken, this application of this doctrine can only be a sort of appeal. I don't think we have any legal means of using that one to restructure our debt or anything like that. It can only be used to sort of try and get them to sort of be considerate. But on the other hand, something I beg to disagree with the brigadier. He's saying that it's the lender's responsibility. I think it's very much the borrower's responsibility to make sure whatever you borrow is for a good purpose and it's repayable and it has some value. That is the basic problem we are having. You see, whatever the brigadier quite rightly said, whether there are feasibility studies, whether somebody has checked the ability to repay, absolutely nothing has been done on any of those things. We know the project that I'm familiar with, you see. Now, unfortunately, that is the basis of the whole problem. And also going further, we have to fully agree with the brigadier that we are living way beyond our means. You see, we blame the government for doing it. In fact, that's why we have leaders. We are supposed to lead the people. But our people themselves are at fault. You see, living way beyond their means, very happy, expecting this, that, and the other, with turning an entire blind eye on where the money is coming from, that we can't afford it, you see. And the fault had been in the lack of leadership, which are foisting things like this LPG on the poor, you see, who are either unable to understand or get carried away with the, wanting to do what the rich are doing. They don't want to be left behind. ignoring whether it's something they can afford. Those are the basic problems. But right now, coming back to our present problem, you see, I'm worried about what the brigadier said, our choice of people to try and do this, that sort of thing. That is continually happening now. That's the whole problem. Even now, whatever the government does is totally, absolutely not transparent at all. And also we have this so-called opposition. We are talking nonsense all the time without touching upon what should be done. They, at this point of time, they should get together and try and find a solution rather than try to make political gains out of it. That is what is happening. So we are in a great situation. This lot, either the government or the opposition, cannot or will not do anything right. So that's why we need a complete change if we have to get out of this one. That's my view about it.
Chula, can I
Yeah, please.
reply?
Yes, please.
Would
Yeah.
you mind? Can I reply, please?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I mentioned, if you see number 8, I mentioned that with regard to our obligations, I have mentioned that we can offer our support to the creditor to recover his losses from the people who are really accountable. You see, the government that played out the money that robbed the money, to get the succeeding government can give the assistance to the creditor country to sue them. You see, after all, otherwise we will never be in a position to improve our standards of governance, our political ethic. If your argument is given recognition, we are encouraging more and more unethical, unscrupulous, corrupt governments coming forward. There is no other way. If they are made accountable, you see, the people who have robbed the money, country's money, if they have to be made accountable. This is one of the ways in which we can improve our political ethic. But if one government robs and the next government pays the creditor, so the robber will be laughing all the time, and our political ethic will never improve. There'll be no end to it. And that is what was happening also. You see, the Yahapalana government came in 2015, promising to take legal action against the previous Mahinda Rajapaksa government for their robbing. They didn't do it. And they were Mahinda Rajapaksa and them, that government was laughing and came back to power again and it did more robbing. So we have to learn from this experience. We as citizens, as sovereign people. Thank you.
Brigadier, that's exactly what I meant. You see, we cannot expect either party that is there in the government or the opposition, because they are the crooks themselves. You can't expect them to be accountable or to do anything to recover that money, because they themselves are the robbers. So that is why, unless we make that change, I don't see this happening at all. How do we do that? That is my greatest problem.
Chula,
I would suggest one more thing, which I could not.
Lakshman has also raised the hand. Mervyn, you can answer specifically.
Yeah.
If you want.
Just to add a comment, looking at it in the Sri Lankan context, it's difficult, it looks hopeless. If you look at it from the international context, just to highlight the point I'm sort of quote in Britain, the example of loan sharks in Britain, for example, very poor people who short of money go for lenders, payday lenders so-called, at exorbitant interest rates, borrow money, and then knowing they are very poor people, when they can't pay back, they send thugs to to bully them and get their cars or houses or whatever it is. It has been it has happened here, but the government, obviously law-abiding government, take action to challenge, to penalize the payday, the so-called the loan sharks who are ruthlessly exploiting the poor. Because maybe that example doesn't exist in Sri Lanka. People are desperate. If you are poor and vulnerable, nobody's there to help. I'm a firm believer in the law and orders international standards. There must be some authority, quite independent of individual countries, who can, authority we could go to get justice done. If you know the law, therefore part of the responsibility is to, as Brigadier pointed out at the beginning, inform, educate the people, not to lose hope, and find the right people who can take the informed action to look at the law and what right we have, what wrong has been done to us, and then take it to the right level, bit like recovering the stolen assets that some people are talking about. But we need to take action. We should not lose hope and just succumb. We need to fight back. We need to give hope and unite, use our brains to take some practical action.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm optimistic. I think Lakshman's raised the hand. Lakshman?
Yeah, thank you, Chula. Thank you, Brigadier Ranjan De Silva, for the excellent presentation. I have a few questions, quite close to what Parakram asked just now. One thing is how to put this responsibility on the part of the lender. I mean, to check the progress of the project and how it has been benefited the public people, etc. It's a responsibility of the government, right? I think, not the lender. That is one question. Next one is we cannot, as quite rightly stated by Parakrama, we cannot expect the present government to take any action to catch these robbers because they are all in the same group. I mean, take the very general standard. So we'll have to wait till a regime change, if at all, to take any action from the government side, from the country's side. Then, what's the situation in the international arena? Can the UN, can they come to help us? Is there a mechanism? Or can a civil society, because our people are not very knowledgeable in these things. These are international large-scale robberies. So people are clueless, people are helpless at this situation, and they are paying the price now, as you can see. So can a civil society, like for example, BASL, Bar Association, take some action in the international courts regarding these things? Then are there any success stories from other countries who have come out of this kind of situation, getting the lenders to recover the money? Are there any success stories from other countries? And also, the worst scenario is, now you can see in the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos' son has become the next president after so much of fraud and large-scale corruption about 40 years back. Then our present government, Pohot Tour, the chief organizer of Pohot Tour has started his campaign again, right, for the next election. So my main question is, can the international courts or a civil society from Sri Lanka initiate this kind of action to recover the money? Thank you.
Lakshman, yes, because I gave you several examples, they are precedents. Yeah. So it has happened before. This is nothing new, no. So yeah, there are enough and more precedents. We can study them, and if they have done it, so many countries have done it. Rich countries, poor countries, powerful countries, weak countries, all have done it. You see? So why can't we? So there are enough and more examples. And I believe that I'm confident that we have enough legally qualified, knowledgeable people, professionals, lawyers who can handle this. I strongly believe and know that we are capable people. You know, unfortunately, our talents, our capabilities are stifled, stymied by our political system. So I have, if other countries have done it, why can't we do it? That's point one. Point two, yes, what you said is right. You know, the present setup, the present government cannot pursue this defense. There should be a regime change, and then a new government is the correct government that can bring effective results by pursuing this remedy. That is correct, because this government is part of the problem.
Yes.
So they can't be a part of the solution. Even the appointment of, everybody knows this, even the appointment of a new prime minister, the whole country knows. I'm surprised, you will be surprised. I have found that even the man in the street knows this. And he was not selected for the love of the people of this country. He was selected purely to protect one family who are responsible. Everybody knows this. So you see, there is no hope, and there is no hope of getting any solution under this until there is a change of government. And I think that change of government is a foregone conclusion. It's a foregone conclusion. I'll stop there for the moment. I could have said something more also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ranjan, thank you for that. I would not say no hope at all, because say when this group we started about a year ago, we see how far we have come. We're learning so much. And then we are moving forward as well with various activities. For in this context, if there any possibility for us to develop a small group or something who can develop a document or a pathway, how to go along this path if there's a regime change, so that you have the plan in place for anybody to take up when they change or when they have a will to do it.
That's a very excellent idea, and we should do that. I'll give you all my support if you are taking or if anybody is taking the initiative. We should do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I will make an invitation and see who will come forward, and then find a small group so we can work on it. So we have the plan in place. Like, so if there's an opportunity in the future, we can start working on it. So I don't say no to anything, because I know if you work hard, you can achieve certain things. So yes, we can go forward, and we'll see how we can do it.
Chula, on the same count, on the same this thing now, one question. Now, Mervyn suggested that we should go seek some independent group who can take this on. I don't know whether any such group exists. On the other hand, some weeks back, there was a move to get 1 million signatures to go to the UN. The message was that if we collect 1 million signatures, then we can ask the UN to intercede. I don't know what happened to that. That seems to have fizzled out. You see, I would like to know, maybe the brigadier could make a comment on are there any such organization? Can we go to the UN on that kind of basis? If we have something in that mind, then of course we can work towards it to see how to reach that point.
Should I say that again? It's not clear to me.
Is there any UN organization who will look into it? That's what he's asking.
No, they will act if we have at least 1 million signatures for a petition. Is that true?
I have not heard of it, but I can I can do some searching about this 1 million signatures.
Dr. Chula, can I talk about that one?
Yes, Ratnag. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Actually, there was a person talked over this Facebook and all. he said that he is preparing that document and he wanted to do some signatures, but he appeared only once in this Facebook, and after that he became silent. I don't know what happened. And even there was a representative from Candy. Even the Candy man doesn't know what happened to that petition. That's what we thought.
Say in summary for what Parakram said, so we actually have to start or initiate a small group, because if we are working in a small group, then only we can as a group go and ask for help and advice from international organizations. So we cannot really work as an independent, just one person asking for advice and then start the work. We can't do that. We tend to try to get into a group, put our ideas together, see what we can do, and then go for help, and then we will probably get it. And that's how we should work, I think. Given my experience of doing various things, the little bit of masses locally is important to take it forward to get associated help.
Chula, if I may come in with the comment,
yes,
listening to this, I wonder whether there is an overlap and a bit of confusion, because there are various initiatives going on side by side, and we get to know them through social media, and sometimes if you are not close enough to that, we don't know one initiative from the other. We could mistake it to be the same. Now, there was an initiative led by an academic from Kandy University, I can't remember his name right now, who proposed the idea that you need 1 million signatures to go after the stolen wealth to the right authorities and obtain the necessary help to try and start recovering the money that belongs to the country that has been stolen. That's one initiative. So again, it was very credible. A lot of work went on. Perhaps we haven't kept up with it. And maybe we have to look sideways and perhaps engage with them, because they are doing good work, which in turn, if it happens, will benefit the country. But here, the topic today is something slightly different. It wasn't the wealth that has gone out of the country, some banked away somewhere, but it was the lenders who knowingly, out of mischief or evil intent, gave the money, and the country indebted, and people are suffering, unable to pay, to get some relief. So I fully agree. People like us, loving the country, caring about the country, bring our knowledge together, work together in small groups for effectiveness, at the same time comparing notes, communicating with the others, doing similar work, so that we don't overlap and duplicate or work against each other and undermine. And those things can work very well together. Some countries have done it. So, and again, the food bank is another initiative, short-term relief, a group working away, helping the people, constantly talking to each other, because our intentions are to provide short-term help and long-term recovery. So with that in mind, many more people like us need to come together, do the bit that we are best at, constantly talking, encouraging, supporting, comparing with each other. I mean, this is a wonderful forum that people like us voluntarily come together, talk about these things, learn from each other, and wanting to take some action rather than spending our time talking away, because our brothers and sisters are suffering over there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, basically, we are kind of ignorant into this subject. So we need to exploit more. I mean, as far as I know, Mervin probably know, say World War II, there were lots of, cultural things being stolen. And those things were returned eventually, wasn't it? Isn't it, Mervin?
There has been lots of initiatives in different parts of the world, and for example, all the antiques and the paintings belonging to the Jews, that's the Nazis stole, stolen away in Swiss banks and various places. The work is still going on 75 years later. We don't need to give up hope. I mean, our story, while it's bad, it's not as complicated and prolonged, and we certainly have quite a lot of good examples we could learn from, people of knowledge and goodwill prepared to work together. What we haven't been very good at is in the past communicating and cooperating, and also learning from lots of good examples out there. And that is the thing that we need to learn and share with our people and give them the knowledge and also hope, because sadly, the Sri Lankan people today need a lot of hope along with relief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or anything to contribute for the discussion?
Yeah, Dr.
Naveen,
Jula,
sorry,
I have
sorry.
a comment actually.
Yeah.
I am Abhishek here. Can I talk?
Yeah, please,
Actually,
please, yeah.
yes, actually, when in this our discussion, you have been talking about helping others as a group. Actually, that is also very good. But locally, actually, individually, we can do a lot of things as helping to people. For example, in my village, there is a small hospital. That hospital doesn't get any medicine, or even saline is not available at the moment in our hospital. Therefore, the individuals can help provide the necessary thing if possible. For example, say line and there is a the blood testing machine. There are no, what do you call that? There are some needles or something like that are missing. So such things we can do actually in our individual levels. That also, while we are gathering as a group and helping others, individually also we can do a lot of things in a rural level, or even in city level also we can do that kind of things. So that is my one thing is proposal, that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other
Chula,
comments?
may I say, sorry, Chula, may I say something?
Yes, please, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I fully agree with your suggestion that we must get a group together, because right now, as was discussed already, there are certain moves being done. Whether they are realistic, whether they are factual is a question. So we really need to have some group. I'm sure the brigadier can help very much on this one. What are the avenues possible? Ignoring for the time being whether this government does it or not. We must first explore what are those avenues, sort of legitimate avenues that we can take. I don't take recovering of the so-called stolen money is going to help us in the short term. It will take donkey's years. Yeah. So even without that one, our bigger problem is how to survive in the meanwhile. So to which there's another important aspect that we must, this group or any associate groups must bring in, is a change of mindset of the people. I mentioned earlier also, we have been living beyond our means. People, everybody, right down to the lowest strata of people are expecting something way beyond our means. Where that is not only their personal means, but also the country's means, because we are being importing 22 billion worth of stuff when we are earning only 12 billion, right? Now, the question is, how much of that 22 billion has come down now? It is very difficult to see. You see, now we can't get oil and things like that one, or fertilizer for that matter. But on the other hand, that 22 billion would not have been enough if we have to continue on that. So we need that mindset change for people to accept, right, the hardship for a while. Now, for instance, this transport problem occurred because we wasted so much of oil to generate electricity. You see, we should have bitten the bullet and said, no, can't help. We will not use oil for generate electricity because it's so wasteful and expensive. That oil should have been reserved for the transport, which does much more than just getting the lights. Now, that kind of change. Now, this point of time, we really must make that firm decision. No more oil for electricity generation unless the furnace oil coming from the our own refinery, because for other reasons. You see, no diesel at all. Now, that kind of firm decision, people must support a decision like by the government. Now, people can't go up in arms saying that no, we can't have 5 hour power cuts and all that. That change is even more important and more urgent now than these other things which are going to take time to have any effect.
Yeah, Brother Dharmadas, your hands up.
Thank you, Chula.
Chula, can I say something?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
change of mindset is absolutely essential. I fully agree with it. See, uh, we have to understand what went wrong, and we must accept. We must, if I put it this way, if we are not going to make accountability a principle of government, we will never improve the political ethic of the country, and that means we are going to be forever, we are going to live with corruption. Those who have done wrong have to be made accountable, and they have to be some kind of, they should have to be punished in some form. Now in South Korea, 2 presidents were jailed. 2 presidents were jailed. And in France also, I think 1 president spent some time in jail. Even Lula da Silva in Brazil spent some time in jail. So if the leaders who are robbing are getting away, and if the voters are allowing them to get away without being made accountable, you see, then we are not going to, our future is not going to be bright. I would like to remind you at this juncture what has happened in Philippines. You see, after about 30 years, Marcos' son has returned. A similar scenario is possible in Sri Lanka too, if this accountability is not acted upon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dharmadasa.
Right, thank you, Chula. I think in this case, we have a very irresponsible lender, and then we have a very irresponsible and corrupt borrower. As a result, the Sri Lankan general public is suffering. So on behalf of the Sri Lankan general public, I wonder whether there is a method to case a file in the, as Lakshman mentioned, case a file in the international court against the borrower. So that way, we may recover some funds, hidden funds somewhere, and also that will stop future authorities doing the same. And that is on this case. And I was listening to COP discussion very recently, and I found that Ceylon Electricity Board spent 868 billion per annum. This is in 2022, and total government income tax is 860 billion. How can it be? It is not government. It is a organization within the country and spending more than the income of the whole country, whole government. So yes, accountability should be here. So what are we going to do here? It is not only the government, it is people as well. So we need to change all this. That change must happen in the country. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, because that's very important that we highlight the accountability and so on. So actually, in general, we are making very good progress. And Ranjan, I have some good news as well. There are 2 people who's come forward already to translate your document to Sinhalese and Tamil. So please, if you may, send it to me by email, and we'll probably have a translation within a week. And then I will proceed to try to create a subcommittee to see how we can work on about this odious debt. Any other comments? Anything else? I think today was fantastic, and it was a very good discussion, and we made a step forward so that we know how to go about, or what to think, how to think about. And I will try to form a subcommittee, and then I will let you know about it in the future on the updates. And let's hope we'll be able to work on that and develop a document how to go about it. Thank you very much for today's discussion. If there's nothing else, I'll be able to close the meeting if that's all right with you all.
Thank you.
In closing, I would like to make a comment.
Yeah.
You see, we are very, very, what shall we say, vociferous in pointing fingers at China. But people have completely forgotten what US did to us by PL 485 or whatever it is, which made us bread eaters. You see, effect of that one, nobody is talking about. See, that was not the same way, a similar way. That was as equally irresponsible as what you claim to be the lending by the Chinese. So we can't just point with, you see, that's what I start by saying, it's the borrower who's responsible. You see, this doctrine also, then at least for the future, we must insist that doctrine is included in the borrowing we do. Is the total responsibility of the borrower to make sure that what he borrows is for something useful, and whatever the people of that country should not allow the government to do that kind of thing. That is where what I agreed with Professor Dharmadasa is, what did the people do when the CEB lost a trillion over the last 10 years? They'll lose another trillion within the next 2 years. And we are still waiting. That's why I said, let there be 12-hour power cuts. Still, they can't be allowed to use oil for power generation. You see, that is because the CEB fellows just didn't want to go away from oil because for various reasons. And we are still continuing to do that. That until we recognize that and people accept their responsibility also, all is going to remain the same.
Yeah, thank you, Parakrama. I think in relation to what you said, we should be non-aligned, and that's one of the sentences that we have in our petition, so that I don't think anybody comes to you, or they appear as friends or enemies or whatever. Nobody comes to Sri Lanka just to give anything. They will always want something. So we need to negotiate what can be given and what cannot be given. So anyway, so that's where we stand. So let's hope we can stay non-aligned in the future. Anything else? Great discussion today. Mervin, anything? No?
Yeah, just to respond to Parakrama or Dharma for that matter, what did the people do? But the thing is, we don't live in a transparent society. Ordinary people are battling with their day-to-day life. A lot of people don't know that the responsibility, the corruption of the scale of the leaders and these companies. So the reason people didn't act on it is they don't know. They not being irresponsible. They are more vulnerable and in the dark. That's the reason.
But Mervin, there must be a strata of people who really can find that, but not the poor people trying to eke out a living just by. But there is enough of people, educated people. Yeah. They are willing to just be there, not take this up. I mean, this is a question I always say. How many people even take the trouble to write a little article to the papers? They don't. Yeah, this is the issue. So whatever the corrupt governments we have had all this along, people are responsible also. They must accept that part. And also accepting this, all this manna from heaven, to be paid for by the future generation. You still see apples and oranges in the supermarkets when we say we don't have any money to buy oil.
On the same issue, the latest issue is buying gas. Why do we buy 129 million per metric ton while we have 94 million per metric ton? I think people should ask this. Why do they buy the expensive one? When we go to the market, we always look for the cheapest one. At this moment, why do we waste that kind of money? I think we should ask. That is the problem. I think people should not keep quiet. I hear that I hear the discussion in the parliament, and one member asked the question from the Prime Minister went on somewhere else, didn't answer the question. So that is the problem.
You are right. There's always a third party in all these importations, or very often that's what I've experienced whilst in Sri Lanka, because there is a third company who will say, oh, I'm in Japan or something. They buy things from Ukraine, for example, and the goods never go to Japan, they come direct to us, but the invoices say they were exported by Japan. So this is the kind of third-party money laundering system that's been there for a while, and I've seen it in medical equipment purchase. So it is a problem. That's what corruption is. That's the face of the corruption we have.
So, Dr. Chula, my last comment maybe for today.
Yeah.
Right, actually, we have been discussing for a long time. Actually, now today also Dr. Mr. Ranjan Silla also gave a very good speech actually, and Dr. Dharmdas pointed out nice things related to corruption. Actually, I am going back to 2019 election actually. During the election, these things I have pointed out earlier. So we have, the people have 69 lakhs, I think, Hatanama Lakshak Senagar, right, from Sri Lanka have voted this present government. Actually, during that election time, people knew that there were so many court cases. For example, few I will mention, earlier also I have mentioned. One thing is the killing of the Raga writer. Second one is the building of the memorial of parents with people's money, one person. And then, of course, stealing of the tsunami money, so many billions of rupees. And then, of course, owing very nice and very huge buildings in other countries by our local present politicians. There are so many court cases going on, and they were reported newspapers in all languages. And knowing all these things, people voted, right? 69. So in future, even future, as I think Mr. Ranjan De Silva pointed out today, even future, if there is an election, people are blindly voting to some robbers. I don't know why. So therefore, I don't know what to, how to educate our people before voting. If we can do that part, of course, there will be a good future for Sri Lanka. This is my last comment for today.
Let's be hopeful. We are doing some education work. Hopefully, we'll get there somewhere.
Yes.
All right.
Chula, can I come in just for a minute, if you don't mind? This is to remind all of us that, you know, way back 50 years ago, in the time of, I think it was Mrs. Pandaranayaka, in the 70s, you know, 5 parliamentarians were convicted for corruption. Henry Abevikrama of Baddegama, MPD Soisa of Radgama, Munna Kulama DB of, I think, Kurunagala, then CAS Marika, Ari Jayatilaka Navalapitiya, and MS Karyappa. What were they convicted for? What had they stolen? I can't remember all, but I do remember one incident, one example. MPD Soisa had only given a bribe of a sewing machine. You see here, and he lost his seat. He was disenfranchised. Now this is in 1970, 52 years ago. During this period, have we been eliminating corruption, or have we been encouraging corruption? That is my question. We have, as I mentioned in my,
Ranjan, I think we have gone from local to international. That's the only difference.
we gone from local to international. Thank you. Yes, you see, so there is something fundamentally wrong. Chula, to this audience, to my newly found audience, I think I say that our problems in Sri Lanka are fundamental. You see, this is not superficial. We cannot have palestra being applied and expect these problems to be solved. That is what it shows. Our problems are fundamentally that we have to get at the root of the problem. People are not voting, as I mentioned in my address. You see, people are not voting. When it comes to voting, you see, they forget all this corruption and they vote for race and religion. They caste and creed. You know, these are the weapons that people use. So you see, even religion has not made progress. No, Buddhism, has it made progress? So we have to, I think this is an excellent forum for take up these issues at a fundamental level so that we can come up with radical answers to ensure that Sri Lanka makes a paradigm shift. And as someone mentioned, you see, the attitude change must come. A mindset must change. And it is up to us to do that. Thank you.
I think we should be optimistic because take Japan, for example. Japan was changed fundamentally thinking completely at the end of World War II. So I'll stop there. I think Ranjan Gunasekara is trying to raise a question. Are you there? Ranjan Gunasekara, are you there?
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I just want to thank you, Mr. Ranjan De Silva, for a breaking presentation. And we will give our full cooperation to get the possible things going with the host. Thank you.
Okay, excellent program. I think I can conclude for today. So we'll hopefully meet with the subcommittee in the future, and we'll work for that. Thank you for opening another window of hope for us, Ranjan De Silva. Great.
Thank you very much.
Good night for everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Lakshman, Dharmi, Chula, good night.
Good night. Okay.